The Galactic Council had ruled the stars for 11,000 years. No one questioned them. No one challenged them. They were old when most species were still learning to make fire. Their ships crossed the darkness between worlds like great metal whales swimming through an endless ocean. Their stations hung in the void like silver cities. Their word was law. 12 species sat on the council. Each one had conquered death and distance. Each one had built empires that stretched across hundreds of worlds. Together, they controlled everything that mattered in the known galaxy: trade routes, communication networks, the beacon systems that allowed ships to travel faster than light. Without the Council's permission, a species could not buy or sell, could not speak across the stars, could not travel beyond their own tiny corner of space. This was not cruelty. This was simply order. The Council had created peace where there had been chaos. They had ended wars that had burned across entire star systems. In exchange for this peace, they asked only one thing from younger species: tribute. Every new civilization that reached the stars was visited by the Council. Everyone was given the same choice: pay tribute and join the order, refuse and face isolation, alone, cut off, surrounded by powers that could crush them without effort. In 11,000 years, no species had ever refused. Ambassador of the Dominion had delivered the Council's terms to 47 civilizations. He was old even by the standards of his people, a species of great crustaceans who lived for thousands of years. His shell was from ancient battles. His eyes, dozens of them arranged in clusters on his broad head, had seen empires rise and fall. He had watched young species weep with despair. He had watched them rage with fury. In the end, they all signed the documents. They all paid the tribute. When the humans arrived at the edge of Council space was not concerned. He had read the reports. A young species, barely a few centuries into space travel. A handful of small colonies clinging to hostile rocks. Their ships were slow. Their weapons were primitive. Their population was tiny compared to even the smallest Council species. They were, his analysts assured him, completely unremarkable. The Council met and decided the terms quickly. The humans would pay 30% of their rare mineral production. They would provide genetic samples for the Council's biological archives. They would give up their 3 outer colonies, small mining outposts that happened to sit on valuable transit routes. Standard terms, perhaps even generous, considering how weak the humans were. Traveled to Earth himself. It was not strictly necessary. He could have sent a junior diplomat, but he was curious about these creatures. They had come from a world of water and air, of green growing things and blue skies, so different from his own birth world of crushing depths and endless pressure. The human station orbited their planet like a child's toy, small, fragile. Shuttle could have destroyed it with a single shot. He did not mention this as he boarded. There was no need for threats. The situation spoke for itself. The human delegation met him in a conference room with windows that looked down on their world, paused for a moment to observe the planet, blue and white and green, beautiful in a soft and temporary way. He had seen worlds like this before. They were always so proud of their little gardens. They never understood how small they were. Ambassador was the leader of the human delegation. She was small even for her species. Her hair was black, the colors mixed together like storm clouds. Her face was lined with age, though knew that humans aged quickly and died young. 60 or 70 years and they were gone, barely time to learn anything at all. She greeted him politely. Her voice was calm and steady. She offered him refreshment, which he declined. She asked about his journey, which he answered briefly. Then they sat across from each other and placed the document on the table between them. He explained the terms. He explained the consequences of refusal. He explained the benefits of compliance: access to Council trade networks, protection from hostile species, technology exchanges that could advance human civilization by centuries. Ambassador listened without interrupting. Her face showed no expression that could read. When he finished, she picked up the document and read it carefully. Every page, every clause, every small detail buried in the ancient formal language. The other humans in the room were silent. Guards stood behind him, their weapons visible but not raised. The windows showed the slow turning of the earth below. Clouds moved across blue oceans. City lights sparkled on the night side. Finally, set the document down. "I will need to consult with my government," she said. Had expected this. "Of course, I will grant you 72 standard hours. This is customary." "Thank you." She did not ask for more time. She did not argue about the terms. She did not make emotional appeals or angry protests. This surprised slightly. Most species reacted with more passion at this stage, fear or fury, sometimes both. The human ambassador simply stood and offered her hand in the strange greeting custom of her people, touched it briefly with one of his smaller claws. Her skin was warm and soft, so fragile, he could have crushed her fingers without effort. "We will speak again in 72 hours, he said. "Yes," she agreed, "we will." Returned to his ship and settled in to wait. His staff began monitoring Earth's communication networks. They would track the panic, record the debates, document the inevitable collapse of resistance. It was useful data for future encounters. Below, on the planet and in the stations and ships that surrounded it, humanity began to talk. Governments met in emergency sessions. Military leaders argued about options. Ordinary people watched the news and wondered what would happen to their world. Watched all of this with patient interest. He had seen it many times before, the fear, the anger, the desperate search for alternatives that did not exist. In the end, they would accept. They always did. He selected a ceremonial pen from his collection and placed it beside the acceptance documents. Soon, he would add another species to the long list of those who had bent their knee to the council. Another tribute, another small victory in the endless maintenance of order. The stars turned slowly outside his window. The universe continued on its ancient path, and somewhere on the blue planet below, sat alone in her office and read the council's demands one more time. She had 72 hours to respond. She already knew what her answer would be. The first day passed slowly on the council observation vessel. Spent his time reviewing reports and taking meals in his private quarters. His staff worked in shifts, monitoring the streams of data that flowed from Earth's communication networks. They recorded everything, every broadcast, every government meeting, every conversation between leaders trying to decide the fate of their species. His senior aide brought him updates every few hours. Was a being made of living crystal, their bodies shifting colors as they spoke. They had served for 3 centuries and knew his moods well. "The humans are divided," reported on the morning of the second day. "Their governments cannot agree on a response. Some want to fight, some want to run. Most understand that they must accept our terms." Clicked his mandibles in satisfaction. It is always the same pattern. How many times have we watched this exact scene play out? 47 times under your leadership, replied. They held out the longest, 16 days, but they too eventually signed. The humans will not last 16 days. They are too practical. They will see the logic of their situation. Rose from his resting platform and moved to the observation window. Earth hung in the darkness, half in shadow, half in light. He could see storms moving across its surface. Tiny sparks of lightning in the clouds. Such a busy little world, so full of life and activity, so completely unaware of how insignificant it was. His analysts had prepared a full report on human history, had read it with interest. These creatures had nearly destroyed themselves many times, wars that killed millions, weapons that could have burned their entire planet to ash, environmental damage that had pushed them to the edge of extinction, and yet they had survived. They had reached the stars despite everything. There was something admirable in that, admitted to himself. A stubbornness, a refusal to die, but stubbornness alone could not protect them from the Council. Many species had been stubborn. All of them had learned that stubbornness without power was just another form of weakness. The second day brought more of the same. Arguments in human governments, military vessels moving to new positions, civilian populations expressing fear and confusion. Staff it all with professional efficiency. Their fleet is pathetic, one analyst reported. Perhaps 300 vessels capable of combat. None of them could survive more than a few minutes against even our smallest warship. Their ground forces are larger but equally primitive. Chemical weapons, kinetic projectiles, some basic energy systems, nothing that would trouble a proper military force. Their economy is fragile. A blockade would cause widespread suffering within weeks, starvation within months. Absorbed these reports without surprise. He had expected nothing different. The humans were weak in every way that mattered. Their only real choice was to accept the Council's terms and hope for mercy. On the evening of the second day, something unusual happened. The flow of panicked communications from Earth began to slow. The emergency meetings continued, but they became quieter, more focused. The tone of the broadcasts changed. Less fear, less anger, something else that could not quite identify. "What is happening?" he asked. His aide's crystals flickered with uncertainty. "I am not sure. They appear to be reaching some kind of consensus, but the discussions are happening in closed sessions now. We cannot monitor them directly." That is to be expected at this stage. They are probably drafting their acceptance and do not want the public to see the details until they are ready. Perhaps said, but their colors remained unsettled. The third day dawned, and with it came a message from Ambassador. She requested a final meeting to deliver humanity's response. Agreed immediately. He prepared the acceptance documents and selected his finest ceremonial pen. A beautiful object, carved from the shell of a creature that had gone extinct 10,000 years ago. He had used it to witness the submission of 17 species. His guards formed up around him as he prepared to board the shuttle, approached with a final report. "Ambassador, there is something strange in the data." "What kind of strange?" "The human military vessels have stopped moving. They are not preparing for combat, but they are not standing down either. They are simply waiting. And the civilian communications have become very quiet, almost peaceful." Considered this. It was unusual. Most species became more agitated as the deadline approached, not less. But perhaps humans were different. Perhaps they processed their fear in ways his analysts did not understand. "It does not matter," he said finally. "They are weak. They have no choice but to accept. Whatever strange emotions they are experiencing, the outcome will be the same." He boarded the shuttle and made the short journey to the human station. The same conference room. The same windows looking down on Earth. The same table where he had first presented the Council's demands. But something was different. Ambassador was waiting for him, but her delegation was smaller this time. Just one aide, a young man who stood quietly behind her with a slim tablet in his hands. No guards, no advisors, no nervous bureaucrats checking documents and whispering worried questions. Herself looked different too, not physically. She was the same small-haired woman he had met 3 days ago, but something in her eyes had changed. There was a stillness there that had not been present before, a calm that seemed too deep for the situation. Had negotiated with hundreds of species over thousands of years. He had learned to read the signs of surrender, the slumped shoulders, the defeated eyes, the trembling hands signing documents they hated. Ambassador showed none of these signs. She looked like someone who had already made peace with whatever was coming, someone who had looked at every possible future and accepted them all. This should have pleased. Acceptance was what he wanted, but something about her calm made him uneasy. It was not the calm of defeat. It was something else entirely. "Ambassador," he said, taking his seat across from her, You have had time to consider our terms." "We have," she said. Her voice was steady, quiet, almost gentle. "And you are prepared to deliver your government's response." "I am." She gestured to her aide, who stepped forward and placed the tablet on the table, reached for it, but spoke before he could activate the screen. "The response is brief," she said. "I wanted to deliver it personally, as a courtesy between our peoples." Waited. Outside the windows, Earth turned slowly in the darkness. Clouds moved across its surface. City lights glittered on the night side. A beautiful world, a fragile world, a world that was about to learn its place in the order of things. Ambassador met his eyes, all of them, dozens of alien eyes staring at two human ones. And she smiled. The smile on Ambassador's face was small and soft. It was not a smile of victory or defiance. It was the kind of smile a mother might give a child who had asked an innocent question, patient, knowing, almost sad. Did not understand it. In all his years of diplomacy, he had never seen a smile like that on the face of someone about to surrender. The response, said, is a single word. A single word. The mandibles clicked with confusion. Acceptance documents were usually long and detailed. They contained formal agreements, schedules of tribute, lists of concessions. A single word made no sense. "I do not understand," he admitted. "You will," folded her hands on the table in front of her. "Earth's government has discussed your terms carefully. We considered every option, every possibility, every path that might lie before us. And in the end, we found that only one response was true to who we are as a people." She paused. The silence in the room was complete. Even the soft hum of the station system seemed to fade away. "The word," she said, "is no." Did not move. His dozens of eyes remained fixed on the small human woman across from him. His mind processed her words slowly, turning them over like strange objects that did not fit anywhere. "No." The word hung in the air between them. Simple, final, impossible. "I do not think you understand what you are saying," said at last. His voice was calm, but something cold had begun to spread through his body. Something that felt almost like fear, though he had not experienced fear in centuries. "We understand completely," replied. "We are refusing the Council's terms. We will not pay tribute. We will not surrender our colonies. We will not provide genetic material or any other form of submission." "This is not a negotiation," said. His voice grew harder. "These are the Council's terms. They are not open to discussion." "We are not negotiating. We are simply declining." Standing behind, shifted with visible agitation. Their crystal body flashed with colors that indicated alarm and disbelief. The guards moved their hands closer to their weapons. "You cannot decline," said. "No species has ever declined. Do you understand what this means? Your trade access will be revoked. Your communications will be cut. Your colonies will be blockaded. Your people will be isolated, surrounded, left to wither and die in the darkness between stars." "We understand." "Your fleet cannot protect you. Your weapons cannot harm us. You have no allies, no resources, no hope of survival outside the Council's order." "We understand." "Then why?" The question burst from with more emotion than he had intended. In that moment, he did not sound like a diplomat of the ancient dominion. He sounded like someone genuinely confused. "Why would you choose suffering when peace is offered? Why would you choose isolation when community is available? Why would you say no when yes costs you so little?" Ambassador was quiet for a moment. She looked out the window at her world, turning slowly in the darkness. Then she looked back at Ambassador. "Let me ask you a question. In 11,000 years of rule, has the Council ever been refused?" "Never." "Has any species ever simply said no? Not as a bargaining position, not as a prelude to war, just, 'No, we will not participate, we will not comply, we will go our own way, whatever the cost'?" Searched his memory. Thousands of years of records, hundreds of species. Many had resisted at first. Some had fought brief feudal wars. A few had tried to flee, but all of them in the end had signed the documents. All of them had paid the tribute. No, he admitted, no one has ever simply refused. Then perhaps, said softly, it is time someone did. Felt the cold spread deeper through his body. He had faced armed fleets without fear. He had negotiated with species that could have destroyed his ship with a thought. But this small woman with her hair and her patient smile frightened him in a way he could not explain. You cannot win, he said. We are not trying to win. We are simply refusing to lose ourselves. You will suffer. Yes, we expect to suffer. We have discussed this at great length. Our people know what is coming. They have accepted it. They will die. Your colonies will starve. Your children will grow up in darkness, cut off from the stars. Some of them, yes, probably many of them. His voice was steady. Her eyes did not waver. But they will die free. They will die knowing that they never knelt, that they never sold their souls for comfort, that when the universe demanded they surrender their dignity, they said no. Stared at her. His mind searched for some response, some argument that would break through her calm, but he found nothing. She was not being brave. She was not being defiant. She was simply stating facts. This is who we are. This is what we choose. We accept the consequences. You are insane, he said finally. Your entire species is insane. Perhaps, smiled again, that same soft, sad smile. Or perhaps we simply value different things than you do. She rose from her seat. Her aide stood with her. At the door she paused and looked back. Ambassador, your council has done this many times. You know how species react when they are threatened. Fear, fury, desperation. You know how to handle these things, but I wonder, do you know how to handle a species that is not afraid? Not because we are strong. We know we are weak. But because we have already accepted the worst you can do and we find it preferable to what you are asking us to become. She opened the door. We will not speak of this again. There is nothing more to discuss. Humanity's answer is no. It will remain no. Forever. Whatever you do next is your choice. Whatever we endure is ours. She walked out. The door closed behind her with a soft click. Sat alone in the empty conference room, the unsigned document spread before him, the ceremonial pen unused in his claw. Outside the window, Earth continued its slow rotation. The humans went about their lives on its surface, preparing for whatever was coming. They had said no. And for the first time in 3,000 years, had no idea what to do next. The Council's response came within days. It was swift and precise, following procedures that had been established thousands of years ago. Communication relays serving human space went dark. Trade routes were closed. A flotilla of warships took position around humanity's outer colonies, their weapons armed but silent. The blockade had begun. Returned to the Council's great station to deliver his report. The 12 eldest species listened in their ancient chamber, a room older than most civilizations. When he finished speaking, there was a long silence. They said no, said the eldest, a being of pure energy who had existed for nearly 50,000 years. Simply no, nothing more. Nothing more, confirmed. They made no threats, they asked for nothing, they simply refused. This is unprecedented, said another, a massive creature of living stone whose thoughts moved slowly but deeply. What do they expect to achieve? I do not believe they expect to achieve anything, said. That is what troubles me. They have no plan for victory. They have accepted that they cannot win. They are simply refusing. The Council debated for hours. Some argued for immediate military action. Destroy one of the human colonies as an example. Show them the cost of defiance. Others counseled patience. The blockade would bring them to their knees eventually. Starvation and isolation would accomplish what threats could not. In the end, they agreed to wait. The humans were weak. Time was on the Council's side. Within months, perhaps weeks, the pressure would become unbearable. They would send desperate messages begging for mercy. They would sign whatever documents were placed before them. But the months passed, and the desperate messages never came. Monitored the situation with growing confusion. The human colonies rationed their supplies. They grew food in underground chambers lit by artificial suns. They repaired old ships and built new ones from salvaged parts. They suffered, yes. People went hungry. Some died. But they did not break. Worse, they adapted. Human traders began appearing in parts of space that the Council had long ignored. Small, independent worlds that had no value to the great powers. Forgotten outposts and struggling colonies that existed outside the Council's attention. The humans traded with them, not for profit but for survival. And in exchange, they offered something unexpected. Knowledge. Human scientists began publishing their research openly, freely. They asked for nothing in return: medical advances, engineering techniques, agricultural methods, information that the Council had hoarded for, given away to anyone who wanted it. The effect was small at first. A minor species on the edge of known space suddenly cured a disease that had plagued them for centuries. A struggling colony developed new power systems that doubled their energy output. Little changes, insignificant in the grand scheme of things. But the changes spread, brought reports that grew more troubling with each passing week. They who had paid tribute to the Council for 300 years were asking questions. Why did they pay so much when they received so little? Why were the trade agreements so unfair? The humans had shown them that another way was possible. The collective delayed their tribute payment, citing administrative problems. They sent a formal letter requesting a review of their agreements. Small acts, careful acts. No one wanted to challenge the Council directly, but the pattern was clear. Something was changing. "They are watching the humans," said one evening. "All of them. Every species that has ever paid tribute to the Council is watching to see what happens." "And what do they see?" asked. "They see a species that said no. They see that the stars have not fallen. They see that the Council has not destroyed them, and they are beginning to wonder, could we do the same?" Stared out at the darkness between stars. He had served the Council for 3,000 years. He had believed in the order, the stability, the peace that came from absolute power maintained by absolute certainty. But now that certainty was cracking, and he did not know how to repair it. He requested a private audience with the eldest. The being of pure energy received him in a chamber filled with soft light and gentle warmth. "You are troubled," he observed. "I am," admitted. "I do not understand the humans. They have no power, they have no leverage, they have nothing except their refusal, and yet it is working." "Working how?" "Every day they survive, they prove that our system is not inevitable. Every day they endure, they show others that submission is a choice, not a requirement. The tribute we collect is based on fear, fear of isolation, fear of destruction, but the humans are not afraid. And if fear loses its power, then the system collapses." The finished. Their energy flickered thoughtfully. "Yes, I have considered this as well." "We must act," urged. "We must make an example of them, show the galaxy that defiance is still punished." "Must we?" This voice was calm, ancient, patient. "Consider what you are asking. We would destroy a species that has done us no harm, that has offered us no violence, that has simply said no and continued to exist peacefully. On what grounds do we commit such an act?" "On the grounds that they defy the order." "Do they? They follow their own laws. They harm no one. They trade honestly with those who will trade with them. They share knowledge freely with those who want it. Is it defiance to simply exist differently?" Struggled to find an answer. The question seemed simple, but it touched something deeper than politics or power, something about the nature of authority itself. "We have ruled for 11,000 years," they continued. "In that time we have made many decisions, some wise, some less so, but we have always believed that our rule was justified because we provided order, stability, peace. Now a small species asks us a simple question: what gives us the right to demand that others live as we command? And I find I do not have a good answer. The great chamber fell silent. Outside its walls, the galaxy continued on its ancient path. Stars burned, worlds turned, species lived and died and dreamed of something better. And somewhere in a small corner of space, surrounded by enemies they could not defeat, humanity endured. Not with anger, not with fear, just with the simple, stubborn insistence that they would live on their own terms or not at all. Left the chamber without speaking. He did not know what would happen next, but for the first time in 3,000 years, he was no longer certain that the Council would win. 18 months after the Council's demands, something extraordinary happened. It happened without ceremony, without announcement, without any explanation at all. The blockade ships received orders to withdraw. They powered down their weapons, turned away from their positions, and disappeared into the darkness between stars. One moment they were there, a wall of metal and fire surrounding humanity's colonies. The next moment they were gone. Communication relays flickered back to life. Trade routes reopened. The restrictions that had isolated humanity from the rest of the galaxy simply vanished. No one in the Council admitted to making the decision. No official record was created. No formal statement was issued. When other species asked what had happened, they received only silence or vague references to administrative adjustments. But everyone knew the truth. The Council had backed down. Ambassador received the news in her office on Earth. She read the reports quietly, her face showing nothing. Her aide waited for some reaction, a smile of triumph, a sigh of relief, some acknowledgement that they had won. But only nodded and set the reports aside. "We did not win," she said, as if reading his thoughts. "We simply did not lose ourselves." The aide did not understand, but he was young. He would learn. 3 days later, a message arrived through unofficial channels. It came from the Council ambassador who had delivered the original demands. It was personal, informal, not the kind of communication that usually passed between governments. Read it alone in her office, with Earth turning slowly outside her window. The message said, "I have studied your species extensively since our first meeting. I have read your histories, your philosophies, your literature. I have tried to understand how a people so weak could do what you have done, and I believe I have found an answer, though I am not certain I fully understand it. You have a word that we do not have. My translators struggle with it. They render it as worth that cannot be taken or value that exists without permission. But your word is simpler. You call it dignity. The Council has always operated on the assumption that worth is relative. A species is valuable if it is powerful, if it is useful, if it has something to offer. Worth is given by those above and received by those below. This is the foundation of our order. But your people seem to believe something different. You seem to believe that worth is inherent, that every being possesses it simply by existing, that it cannot be granted by the powerful or stripped away by the cruel. It simply is. When we demanded tribute, we expected you to calculate your options, to weigh the costs and benefits, to make a rational decision based on power and survival. This is what every species has done before you. But you did not calculate. You simply asked yourselves, would paying tribute be consistent with our dignity? And when the answer was no, you refused, not because you thought you could win, not because you had some secret plan. You refused because submission would have cost you something you valued more than survival itself. I do not know if this makes you wise or foolish. Perhaps both, perhaps neither, but I know that the Council has never encountered anything like it before. We are old. We have seen empires rise and fall. We have watched species burn themselves to ash and others build civilizations that lasted for ages. We thought we understood all the ways that beings could respond to power. But we did not understand you. We did not know how to respond to a species that could not be threatened, not because you were strong, but because you had already accepted every possible consequence and found them all preferable to submission. You did not need to defeat us. You only needed to refuse us. And against true refusal, freely made and fully accepted, even the greatest power in the galaxy is helpless. The Council has withdrawn its demands. Officially, it was a bureaucratic error of your species' status. Unofficially, we are frightened, not of your ships or your weapons. We are frightened of what you represent. For 11,000 years, our system has rested on one assumption, that everyone will comply, that when faced with overwhelming power, every species will eventually bend. You have proven this assumption wrong, and if it is wrong for you, then it may be wrong for others. The 100 other species who pay tribute and wonder if they have a choice. You have taught the galaxy that no is always an option. I do not know whether to thank you or curse you for this, perhaps both. Perhaps neither. The message ended there. No signature, no formal closing, just silence. Sat with it for a long time. Outside her window, the sun set over the Pacific Ocean. The sky turned red and gold and purple. Lights came on across the continents. Humanity went about its evening rituals, unaware of the message that had traveled across the stars to reach this small office. She thought about responding, but what was there to say? They had not fought a war. They had not negotiated a treaty. They had simply refused to be what the Council wanted them to be, and somehow that had been enough. She archived the message in the diplomatic records, where historians would eventually find it and argue about its meaning for centuries. Then she turned off her lights and went home. Earth continued to turn. The stars continued to burn, and somewhere in the vast darkness of space, a very old order was beginning to crack. Not because it had been attacked, not because it had been defeated, but because a small, weak, stubborn species had looked at the most powerful force in the galaxy and said a single word. No. And meant it. In the years that followed, the galaxy changed slowly. They renegotiated their tribute agreements. The collective began trading directly with humanity. Other species, one by one, found their courage. The Council did not fall. It was too old, too powerful, too deeply rooted to simply disappear. But it bent, it adapted, it learned to ask rather than demand. And when historians looked back to find the moment when everything changed, they always came back to the same point. A conference room on a human station, a small woman with hair, a single word spoken without fear. No. That was all it had taken. One word, one refusal, one small act of dignity in the face of overwhelming power. The Council had come to Earth expecting submission. They had found something else entirely. They had found humanity. And humanity had said no. The end.